What we're using today is a space-age material. It really is great. Our object is to make a floor for a greenhouse. And normally you'd think, well, why don't they build it out of wood or maybe pour a concrete slab? This is going to outdo either wood or concrete. It is just so amazing, you wouldn't believe it. It has a lot of advantages. And what we're doing right now is cutting off 3.5-inch wide pieces to act as a joist in under the floor that we'll put out of this same material. We'll tell you a little bit more about it as we go along. We got to cut 9 of these things, so I got to get going. As you can see, this cuts just as easily as lumber. However, that's where the similarity ends. We've got all 9 pieces cut. Now what we have to do is cut them to length so we can make a perfect square that's 8 feet. Now 7 of our 9 pieces are going to be joists under the floor, and they've got to be 93 inches. The reason is because the material here is 1.5 inches thick, and our 2 end caps will make up the 3 inches difference there, so we'll end up with a perfect 8-foot square, right? Okay. Now let's mark that and cut it. Well, that's one, only 6 more to go. Well, there's number 7. Now, our 2 end caps are each 8 feet long, and what we want to do now is to measure out for 16-inch centers on the joist. So we'll come out 16, 32, 48, and all the way on down, every 16 inches. Now we'll do the same thing on the other end cap, and we're going to be ready to move all this stuff out, lay it out on the floor, and start putting it together. That's going to be fun. Now what we're doing here is drilling pilot holes, and they're countersunk. We have a special bit for that. This material that we're using is very special. It's made out of fiberglass and urethane. It's lightweight, but it's a lot stronger than lumber is. And as a matter of fact, nothing can happen to it. It doesn't warp, it doesn't take on moisture, it can't rot, insects don't attack it. It's just a great piece of material. Now that we got all the holes drilled, we need to line up our joist with the end caps. Be sure they're going to be centered here. And we talked a little bit about a screw that's countersunk and drilling that countersunk hole. If you can see the bottom of the screw, it's beveled a little bit. With a countersunk hole, it can go in and the head of the screw will be flush with the surface, and that's desirable. Right now we need to start screwing these things together. Well, our framework for the base is all done. All we need is to put the flooring over there. Incidentally, we mentioned early on that this was going to be for a greenhouse. Teresa is going to be putting the greenhouse together. It's going to really look great. We also learned something in the course of doing this. You can get drywall screws with fine threads or coarse threads. We found that the coarse threads were much better for this kind of material. Now let's go get the floorboards and go to work. Now this material for the flooring is the same as what we have under here, only it's a thinner sheet. We have to come in and put screws all the way around the perimeter and into the joist. That's the reason we're striking these chalk lines, so that we don't miss and just drive them into nothing under there. Our next step is to start drilling the holes for the countersink. Now we finished with all the screws in the floor here, but I noticed that this particular joist is bowed in. That means when we get ready to put the next one up here, the screw would be real tenuous about getting into the board down here. So what we're going to do is show you a little trick. Put a little screw in here. Now we have a handle so we can pull it out. That way we can drive a screw in there to hold it out. Now we can go ahead and finish with the rest of these screws and bring in our next piece of flooring. Well, that's the last screw. You know, this was a fun project. It took us a couple of hours, but it's certainly well worth it. One thing that occurred to me when I was working with this, if you had a concrete base underneath your greenhouse, there's no way in the world you could move it, is there? Well, with this, it's lightweight enough that you can.